Out of all the trees that you're going to find in your garden, apple trees are probably the ones that have got the longest history of being pruned. Pruning trees can be great, but it can also lead to its own problems, and as well as having stubs and branches that haven't quite been pruned properly, you also get these old pruning wounds. And as you can see here, this hollow would have been a branch coming out. This has been cut off, and then rot has managed to hollow out the inside of this trunk. Now, as long as this tree doesn't get too big, that shouldn't be a problem. If it's healthy, it can fight off and compartmentalise against any pathogenic fungi that might try and kill the tree. But the one thing we're worried about with it is its structural stability. So this tree moves a lot. Now, as long as we keep it small, that's not going to be a problem. But if we let it grow too big and it has a really heavy fruit load, we could look at actual stem failure. So we're going to prune out a few little branches today. And the key to pruning, or the key that we run by, is less is always more. So unless it's because it's really dangerous, it's out over a road or it's over your house, it really is a case of taking a little bit less than what you might think. And the reason we do that is because the more pruning wounds we leave on a tree, the more chance there is for infection to get in. So when looking at a tree like this to prune, we want to try and keep the overall shape. We don't want it to get too big, so we're going to bring the height in a little bit, and we're maybe going to take a little bit of weight out some of these branches. But before you do anything else, before you prune any healthy branches off, we're going to prune anything that's dead, diseased, or damaged. The 3Ds. That's the 3Ds. So, as we can see up in here, there's a couple of crossing branches. So we're going to take a nice sharp pair of secateurs and start to prune some of these out. So when pruning, there is a right and a wrong way to prune. Now, going with our less is more rule and our 3Ds, dead, diseased or damaged, the next step is where to actually cut the branch. Now, you do see this a lot, and then this stub is left. What we want to do is either prune back to a live bud or back to the branch collar. So this particular one is dead, so we're actually going to prune back to here. So branches like this on a tree of this size probably only want to be taking 3 to 5 this size out, because what we're trying to do is a sympathetic prune. You can make lots of small cuts, but as soon as we start getting to bigger cuts like this, that's when the real danger for the tree comes. As far as actually taking a big slice off and leaving wounds this size, we really want to avoid that at all costs. So, dead, diseased, damaged wood, lots of small cuts, a few bigger pieces to get the weight out and to bring the shape in, but nothing major. So where we have water shoots or epicormic growth, which is this really straight growth coming up from old pruning wounds, we don't want that. So that's all going to get cut off, and we're going to try and go as close to where this shoot is coming out as possible. Now you can see here that these have been pruned, leaving a little bit of a stub, and what's happened is these have just continued to shoot up. So we're actually going to take this old cut back slightly, and then these can come off as close as we can to that branch collar. And then over time these will heal over and it'll stop sprouting from down there. So what we're planning to do here is bring the height down a little bit and take out maybe a third of these tall shoots. That's going to keep the size down to a manageable amount, and then either every season or every other season we can take a little bit more off. So there's probably going to be one major cut and then a few smaller ones. That'll be the biggest thing we take off this tree. So, although you might be struggling to see me here, we have taken a little bit of weight and height out of the top. The trick really is to not take too much. We could cut everything off to my chest height here because we want the tree to be smaller. And what's going to happen is it's going to throw out loads of those really straight water shoots. Now, this is an apple tree. It fruits lovely, lovely big dripping apples, and those water shoots aren't fruiting shoots. This really knobbly branches framework that you can see around me, these are full of fruiting spurs. This is where the fruit is going to be. So we want to keep as many of these short knobbly shoots as we can and take out as many of those tall water shoots that are really straight with those small little buds that are close to the bark. So I'm going to prune a little bit more at the top of this, and then I'll jump down and we can have a look at the tree. So it might be hard to tell on the camera, but we've taken a substantial amount of height out the top of this, and with that height out comes weight as well, especially when these branches are loaded with fruit. So you can see here the little pile we've got, and this top as well. That's about right for a tree of this size. The one thing I compare it to is you went to the hairdresser. You don't judge how good the haircut is by the amount of hair on the floor. So quite often less is more, and careful pruning is better than an all-out attack, especially for the longevity, the health and the amount of apples you're going to get next year. Thanks for joining us. I hope we've shed a little light on some tips and tricks for pruning an apple tree. The roundup was dead, diseased and damaged wood. Take out lots of small pieces, and then as you go up in size you want to be taking less and less. So lots of little cuts, a couple of medium cuts, and preferably no more than one big cut. And yeah, your apple tree should survive well and look good. Thank you very much.